Welcome back to Ari Teaches Drums, where I will be teaching you all facets and fundamentals of rudimental drumming. You probably clicked on this video because you are interested in learning how to play clean and crisp drags and four-stroke ruffs. These particular rudiments tend to show up more often in the symphonic concert percussion realm, but they can show up in marching percussion as well. In my fundamentals series, which I'm creating here for you, so far we have covered grip, legato strokes, downstrokes, upstrokes, buzz rolls, double strokes, and flams, all of which will help lay the groundwork for becoming a great percussionist and drummer. So if you haven't seen those videos yet, feel free to go back and check those out. All right, so let's get into it. What is a drag? Well, a drag is very similar to a flam, but the difference is that it has two grace notes instead of just one. Those two grace notes are gonna both be soft and low, and then they're gonna be followed by a primary note, which is always gonna be stronger and louder than the two grace notes. So with flams, we have this, where we just had one grace note before the primary note. Drags, we're gonna have two notes before the primary note. Just like flams, the primary note must always be stronger than the grace notes. The grace notes should both sound delicate, close together, and audibly clear as well. So we don't want to get into a realm where we're getting something like this, where I hear way more than just two notes. And the most common sticking that I personally recommend for drags is going to be either LLR or RRL, like this, or just off the left, where the grace notes are on the right hand. Whichever is more comfortable for you is gonna work. So what's the key to playing clean drags? Because a lot of young players really struggle with playing a good clear drag. The single biggest key I can offer is to start by improving your double stroke quality first. I've already covered double strokes in the series here, so I highly suggest that you go back and watch my double strokes video first in order to start mastering that technique, and that will directly translate into helping you play drags and four-stroke ruffs way better. And that's because both drags and four-stroke ruffs both have a double in them. At least with my sticking that I prefer, they're gonna both require a double stroke in them. So as I covered in that video, some very key exercises to practice would be exercises like A-B double beat, gallop, and short, long triplet rolls. Those are all going to significantly help improve your double stroke quality, which are going to translate into your drags and four-stroke ruffs. So what are some other keys to improving besides practicing double strokes? Well, the biggest key I can offer is to focus on spacing and timing. Our goal is for grace notes to lead into the primary stroke with a consistent rhythmic spacing. So we don't want something like this where the double is sometimes really open. And we also don't want the two grace notes to be super crushed and tight to where you don't hear the two notes distinctly. So that might sound something like this. And you hear I'm basically getting a buzz, which is not the goal with drags. With our spacing and timing, we also very much want to focus on keeping the primary note on the beat. It must be on the beat. The grace notes need to come immediately before the beat as a lead-in. So it's just like flams in that sense. So for example, if I just was playing continuous drags, this is what it would sound like. I'm gonna keep my primary note on the beat and the double is gonna lead into it. So my primary note would sound like this. Very simple. The primary note is just on the beats, and then my grace notes I'm going to try to place right before the beat as a lead-in. There's a little bit of a wrist rotation, but the forearm is also involved, as you'll notice, to get a good quality double sound. Little bit of wrist involved. Sure, there is a little forearm, but it's gonna definitely have some wrist rotation involvement. And then I also don't wanna be too loud with my double. I wanna keep it nice and low. But you don't want it too low to where you lose the quality of the double. Because if I go too low, right? I might not be able to get that consistent. And as you guys know, consistency is key. Another key to clean drags is that we want to have even volume between both notes of that double. So I don't want, for example, something like this, where I'm starting loud and then I drop down to a soft note, right? Where I'm losing that quality. Number one, the drag is starting way too loud and those two notes are not even. Right? It just doesn't have that lead-in quality that we want with a drag. So now you're probably wondering, what is a 4-stroke ruff? Well, a 4-stroke ruff is just like a drag, but instead of 2 grace notes, now it's gonna have 3. And the sticking I strongly recommend for 4-stroke ruffs is either RLLR, like that in slow motion, or just the opposite, which would be to start on the left, which would be LRRL. And if you speed that up, it would sound like this. Or off the left. And the reason I prefer that sticking as opposed to some players do like an alternating sticking like this, the reason I like the sticking I showed you first is because this way I can keep the integrity of the double that I had with drags, and all I have to do is just place a low tap before the drags start. So in slow motion, right? Low tap, double, and then the primary note. So as long as I get really confident and comfortable with that drag, all I have to do with the right hand is just play that low tap and go to an accent. And that involves that upstroke motion. So again, go back in the series. If you haven't watched it yet, you're gonna wanna know how to play an upstroke and then to a downstroke to get back down low. And the same keys I just mentioned before are gonna apply to the 4-stroke ruff with our doubles. We want that same quality in our 4-stroke ruffs. So before we get to some exercises for drags and 4-stroke ruffs, I want to share some crucial tips on how to practice drags and 4-stroke ruffs. So as you're practicing, if you can, try to practice in front of a mirror or a camera so you can watch back and see what you're doing and maintain that integrity of the low dynamic of the grace notes. Because in the mirror, if I start to see that my heights and dynamic are way too loud and high, then I know I'm being a little too sloppy and I need to dial it back down. Another crucial tip is to just stay relaxed, stay as relaxed as you can, guys. As you guys know, tension is the enemy. You don't want to squeeze or force those drags. You're gonna be more likely to squeeze too tight and then you get a buzz instead of a good open double. Another crucial tip is rebound awareness. So you do want to try to utilize that natural bounce of the drum head as much as possible. Make the drum work with you, not against you. So get to know your instrument and get to know how it responds to the pressure you add in your hand, and then also with the rotation of your wrist and your arm. Another tip is to begin slowly, guys. Don't rush into these things. Start really slow. You could even break this down and just go super duper slow to get the motion first and the sticking. So I might even start practicing something like drags this slow. And then you just gradually build that up, right? And my last and final tip is please, please, please use a metronome while you practice, guys. I highly suggest the TE tuner, which just costs a few bucks. The metronome is excellent on there, but there's tons of other metronomes. I like the TE tuner because you can do all types of subdivisions, which helps to tighten up your timing. All right, let's get into some exercises. The first exercise I recommend here, besides just basic double stroke exercises, is you could practice 8 on a hand with drags as the variation. So this is really simple. I'll demonstrate here. And the tricky and great thing about this is that you're gonna work drags not only on your right hand, but also on your left hand. In a concert symphonic context, I just suggest you stick to whichever your most confident primary hand is. So if your right hand primary note with left hand doubles is your most consistent, I would just always stick to that in a concert symphonic setting. The sticking doesn't matter as much. But in marching percussion, we do sometimes have left hand drags to right hand drags, especially when you see beats like stuff that Mike Jackson does. I remember seeing, I think it was like Blue Nights, and they were doing something like, or maybe it was Broken City, but that's basically the drag motion going from right to left. So 8 on a hand with drags, it's a great builder to really get that consistency and listen for it, your doubles to be the same quality and same spacing every single time. And like I said, you could practice 8s with 4-stroke ruffs as well, but before you do so, I actually have a more beneficial breakdown for 4-stroke ruffs before you try doing 8s, 8 on a hand, and then off the left. So let's jump into that other exercise first. So for 4-stroke ruffs, I suggest just practicing a puttidas pattern. So here's what that looks like. If you're unfamiliar with puttidas, it's basically just this sticking, right, left, right, left on repeat. So it's like this. And what you want to do with this is gradually work this up. Start really slow and then gradually work it up to where you start doing a bounce stroke for those doubles over there. Because that's essentially going to be what the left hand's doing, and the right hand as well. Because remember, we have to go right, left, right. So it is essentially a puttida and then a release. There's one more step to this though. Then you're gonna want to alternate the accents. So with the right hand, you wanna go tap and then accent, tap, accent, tap, accent. The left hand's gonna stay the same, so it's gonna turn into this in slow motion. And the reason this is super powerful is that as I get faster, it turns into this. And then the 4-stroke ruff, I just get rid of 2 doubles after that accent and it becomes a 4-stroke ruff. I would then just want to condense the space of that puttida to become a bit tighter, a bit more closed, so it sounds nice and crisp like this. So it's a little bit different, but it starts with and then and you can also do this puttidas exercise off the left as well. It's a really great builder. So again, I would go through those steps of just having them all up accented puttidas like this. And then speeding it up gradually. And then even faster. And as you get faster, it's gonna be a little more arm motion, a little more chicken wing, and a little more slight amount of pressure in the hand to get a good crisp double with the proper spacing as the rhythm gets faster. And then you could alternate the tap to the accent. And then get rid of the 2 doubles after the accent. And then you're gonna wanna tighten up that space on the puttida to where it becomes more of a 4-stroke ruff rhythm that we wanna hear. And I can't stress this enough, guys, with those 4-stroke ruffs. It's very important that you start at a low piano tap and then it comes up to an accent. Because if you're doing something like this, That is not the 4-stroke ruff. We want to start extremely low with those grace notes. They need to be little baby notes, nice, soft piano, dynamic, leading up to that primary note. So very important that that right hand gets that action of the primary hand or on the left. Whatever you're more comfortable with, I suggest you to stick with that for concert and symphonic context. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me yet again for another fundamental series video here on drags and 4-stroke ruffs. I hope you found it useful. If you did, let me know by dropping a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for future content. Really do appreciate it, and I hope you stay well out there. Rll Rll out.